Welcome to my last chapter for my Certified Ethical Hacker, Chapter 13. This chapter we're dealing with physical security and social engineering. These are always really big ones because these are two areas where most people seem to not think about. So in this chapter we're looking at the role of physical security, identify the threats to physical security, describe the equipment controls, describe social engineering techniques, and what's really funny is this area is actually one of the smaller PowerPoint presentations, but in reality, we could do dedicated courses just for physical security and just for social engineering. And actually, I'm now prepping for a dedicated physical security course. So, let's talk about natural events. Natural events could be floods, fire, hurricane, tidal waves, basically any act of God, not man-made events. So threats to physical security could be nature, could be man-made, could be utility, or could just be physical failure. Man-made threats, they can consist of things like theft or vandalism, destruction, other threats that could be man-made, social engineering, which that kind of falls under things like theft. Uh, that's just man-made is just man-made. It's hard to describe. Not acts of God. Equipment failure. We're looking at two big things: mean time between failure and mean time to repair. For example, if I'm looking at buying a new hard drive, what's the average life of it? What's going to be the first time before it fails? That's our MTBF. If I'm looking for repair, how quickly can I get it repaired? That's the mean time for repair. Next, loss of utilities. That could be loss of cooling, loss of power, loss of water, loss of whatever utility that is needed. So when we're talking about equipment for physical security, we're talking about mechanical. Could be things like locks, warded locks or tumbler locks. If we are looking at access security, could be like keypads or combination. Um, because we're talking about locks, we could be talking about like master key devices, master key locks, device locks. That's the lockup devices. Could be an ace lock. There are different grades of lock. Grade 1 being the highest, grade 3 being the weakest. What's really interesting here is like we talk about locks, but you don't really understand how easy it is to pick locks until you have a lock in front of you to try to pick. The concept's pretty straightforward, pretty easy, but the actual practice or application of is pretty dang hard. Another one for equipment controls could be bypassing. This is the interesting thing here is if we're talking about locks, we actually have to show you how to pick a lock because that's part of the bypass mechanism, understanding phase 1 between phase 3. With the lower classes of locks, the more secure they are, meaning these lock bypass techniques do not work as easily on them. But to understand how easy they are, you need to be able to at least attempt to do them. Other equipment could be things like fax machines. Oh, this is a hilarious one. Fax machines are typically never stored in a secure location. More often than not, they're just left in the open. A lot of companies still use faxes to send and receive sensitive information. Because we already kind of talked about access control systems, that could be things like RFID and maglock systems to protect against doors, or to protect doors, to help prevent or help protect against people entering those doors. So it's not just a lock, it could be a lock and maglock system. Areas for control, normally Secured areas like a server room or a secured room should all be done via a solid door. If we're looking at walls, it should need to be an actual true floor to ceiling wall, not like a partial wall. Windows are an issue. We can mitigate a lot of this by CCTV or closed circuit TVs or other types of camera systems. Location and the geotagging. The location of the data is typically collected in longitude and latitude. That's kind of pretty straightforward. Location data can be collected by geotagging, smartphone triangulation. That way we can kind of figure out where exactly this location, where exactly the data is, and we do that via location. That's the importance of geotagging. Smartphones actually have a gyroscope in it, so you can actually start seeing the way that it's laying based off of the geoscope. Facility. See, this is the sad part. This is just a quick overview and nothing else. But I mean, fences, lights, guard dogs, gates, locks, turnstiles, man traps. All of these we could spend a dedicated week just focusing on. There's a lot to fencing. There's a lot to lighting. There's a lot to the different types of traps, like man traps and turnstiles, prevention methods to help combine these facility controls to allow for better security. So again, this is just a quick, brief overview. Nothing super in-depth just yet. So for personal safety, we're also talking fire suppression systems, heat activated versus smoke detected versus CO2 based. Smoke does not always mean lack of oxygen. So we could have different detection systems, prevention and detection systems based off of need. Now, fire suppression systems normally for fire suppression systems class A, that's combustible material like wood, paper, fabric. For class B, that is flammable liquids and gas. Class C is electrical fire. Class D is flammable metals. The reason we have different classes is because the suitable suppression is different per. Class A, normally most suppression techniques will work with this. Class B, we're looking inhibiting chemical chain reactions. So we're going to be using something such as water, water mist, dry chemical, or even halon. Class C, because an ordinary combustible but not conductive agent like water shouldn't be used. Because with electrical fire, the water actually may spread. Class D, normally this is special suppression is required. We also have another one, Class K, and that's for cooking oils and fats. And we do that, we actually suppress it by removal of the oxygen or water mist. Gotta be careful with the water mist because that's not the same as just straight water. Water, it will actually make the oil spread, but water mist may help remove the oxygen. Authentication, that could be something you are, something you know, or something that you have. So something you know could be your password. Something you have could be like a smart card or token. Biometrics could be things like a fingerprint, retinal scan, face scan, voice. All right, moving on, let's talk about social engineering. So there are several different types of social engineering, but social engineering is basically talking your way through to get other people to do what you need to do. The types of social engineering could be like authority, linking, consistency, social validation. things of that nature. So the person-to-person based social engineering, uh, important user, maybe a third-party authorization. Hey, I'm here from the cable company. I need to work on your cable. Or, hey, I'm from the AC company. You can masquerade as someone that you're really not. They gain access. That's actually very common. Uses for software to retrieve information, pop-ups, email, email attachments, smartphone attachments. You could do social engineering through social media or just by websites or people searching. You'll be surprised how quickly you can find information from people by people searching. How do we protect against this? Normally by policies and procedures, meaning we need to have policies in place that will do employee hiring termination policies. That way we know how we're going to hire and fire people. Maybe privacy policies, but you can and cannot disclose. Password policies, acceptable use policies, policy for employee identification. That's always a big one. If we're working with government and commercial data classifications, we could be sensitive versus secret versus top secret. That way we can only disclose the appropriate style of information based off the classification. For example, if you know it's classified secret and you know that only these people get secret information, you know not to disclose it just to anyone. That's actually this chapter in a nutshell.